forbidden territory, the sacred rule-in, the vast expanse of the galaxy, where thousands of civilizations traded, fought, and coexisted, there existed one rule that every species knew by heart. It was written in the ancient galactic codex, spoken in every diplomatic gathering, and whispered in the dark corners of space stations across the stars. The rule was simple, yet absolute. Never harm the children of Earth. This law had been carved into galactic history 3 centuries ago, after the Great Purge of the Drachnary Empire. The Drachnary had been a proud warrior race, masters of 17 star systems, with technology that could shatter planets. They had made one fatal mistake. They had taken human children as slaves. Within 6 months, their entire civilization had been reduced to cosmic dust, their worlds turned to glass, their fleets scattered like leaves in a storm. The humans had shown no mercy, no hesitation, and no limits in their fury. The galaxy had learned that lesson well. Humans were generally peaceful, curious, and willing to cooperate. But when their young were threatened, they became something else entirely. They became a force of nature that could not be reasoned with, bargained with, or stopped. The discovery on the outer rim of the Kepler system, a small human colony called New Haven, had been thriving for 12 years. The colony sat on planet Kepler-4 for to be a world of endless green valleys and crystal-clear lakes. The colonists had come seeking a peaceful life away from the crowded inner worlds, and they had found it. They grew crops, raised families, and built a community that felt like the Earth of old stories. 12-year-old Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the colony's central hub. Watching the twin suns set over the horizon, his dark hair caught the golden light as he pressed his face against the cool glass. Beside him, his 8-year-old sister Zara bounced on her toes, her pigtails swinging as she pointed at the colorful sky. "Look, Marcus, the clouds are turning purple again." Zara's voice was filled with the wonder that only children could maintain. "Do you think they have purple clouds on Earth too?" Marcus smiled at his sister's endless curiosity.
Mom says Earth's
"Clouds are white and gray mostly, but I think our purple ones are better." He ruffled her hair affectionately. "Come on, we should get back. Dad'll be home from the mines soon." Their father, Dr. James Chen, was the colony's chief geologist. He had been studying the unusual mineral deposits beneath New Haven for months. Deposits that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. The minerals were unlike anything found elsewhere in the galaxy. And early tests suggested they might hold the key to revolutionary advances in energy production. As the children walked through the colony's main street, they passed other families, going about their evening routines. Children played in the parks while parents prepared dinner. The colony had grown to nearly 3,000 people, all living in harmony on their distant world. They felt safe, protected by the ancient rule that had kept humanity's children safe for 3 centuries. What they didn't know was that their world has already been discovered by those who would break that sacred rule. The Zephyrian desperation across the galaxy, in the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. Supreme Chancellor Crix Vorthok stood before a massive holographic display showing his dying civilization. The Zephyrians were an ancient race, tall and graceful, with silver skin that changed color with their emotions. Their empire had once spanned 50 star systems, but a plague had swept through their worlds, killing billions and leaving their survivors weak and desperate. "The energy crisis grows worse every day," reported General Vex Vorthok, the Chancellor's younger brother. Silver skin had turned a deep blue with worry. "Our ships can barely maintain orbit. Our cities are going dark. We need a new power source, and we need it soon." Chancellor Vorthok studied the reports with growing despair. The Zephyrians had always been a proud people, leaders in art, science, and philosophy. But pride couldn't power their dying worlds. "What about the human colony?" he asked quietly. "Is the one with the unusual minerals?" General Dex straightened, his skin shifting to a dangerous red. The scanning probes confirmed it. The minerals beneath their colony could power our entire empire for 1,000 years. But there's a problem. "The rule," the Chancellor said, his voice heavy with understanding. "The rule," Dex agreed. "But brother, our people are dying. Perhaps it's time to test whether the humans still have the strength to enforce their ancient law." The Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. He had seen the historical records of what happened to the Draknari. But he had also seen the projections of his own people's extinction if they couldn't find a new energy source. The humans are far from their main fleets, he said finally. The colony is isolated, barely defended. If we move quickly— I've already prepared a plan, Nex said, his skin now glowing with excitement. We take a small number of their children, not to harm them, but to study them. The humans have always claimed their children are special, different from other species. If we can understand what makes them unique, we might find a way to safely extract the minerals without violating the letter of the law. It was a lie, and both brothers knew it. But it was a lie that allowed them to sleep at night while planning. The unthinkable. The attack came on a night when both moons were dark, and the colony slept peacefully under a blanket of stars. Marcus Chen woke to the sound of his sister crying. He sat up in bed, instantly alert despite his sleepiness. Zara was standing at their bedroom window, her small hands pressed against the glass. "Marcus, there are lights in the sky," she whispered. "But they're not stars. They're moving." Marcus joined her at the window and felt his blood turn cold. 3 large ships hung in the sky above the colony, their hulls dark against the stars. They were unlike any human vessel he had ever seen, with organic curves and pulsing lights that seemed almost alive. "We need to get Mom and Dad," Marcus said, grabbing his sister's hand. But before they could move, a strange humming sound filled the air. The children watched in horror as beams of light shot down from the ships, and figures in strange armor began materializing in the streets below. Dr. James Chen burst into the room, his face pale with fear. "Children, we need to leave. Now behind." Their mother Sarah Chen, was grabbing emergency supplies from their closet. She was a former military engineer, and her training was taking over. "What's happening, Dad?" Zara asked, her voice small and scared. "Bad people are here," their father said simply. "We're going to get away from them." The family moved quickly through their house, gathering essential supplies. Dr. Chen had prepared for this day, though he had hoped it would never come. He had seen the surveys, knew that their world held treasures that others might want, had prepared escape routes, hidden supply caches, and emergency protocols. As they slipped out the back door of their house, they could hear the sounds of the attack intensifying. The alien soldiers were moving through the colony with military precision, using devices that put the adults to sleep while leaving the children conscious. It was a carefully planned operation, designed to minimize resistance while achieving their goal. "The emergency shelter in the mountains," Dr. Chen whispered to his wife. "If we can reach it, .. But they were not alone in their escape. Throughout the colony, other families were trying to flee. The aliens had anticipated this, and their net was closing rapidly. Marcus watched in horror as a group of children from his school were herded into a strange vehicle that hovered above the ground. He recognized his classmates Tommy Morrison, Lisa Park, and the twin brothers Jake and Matt Stevens. "We have to help them," Marcus said, starting forward. His father grabbed his arm. "We can't help them if we're captured, too. We need to get to the communications array and warn Earth." The Chen family moved through the shadows, avoiding the alien patrols. They had almost reached the edge of the colony when disaster struck. A patrol of 3 alien soldiers spotted them and raised their weapons. The family froze, trapped in the open street. One of the aliens spoke in a voice that sounded like music. But the translation device clipped to his armor turned it into cold, mechanical words. "Surrender the children. They will not be harmed." Dr. Chen stepped protectively in front of his children. "Never." The alien soldier raised his weapon, but before he could fire, an explosion rocked the colony. One of the colonists had managed to activate the emergency defense systems, and automated turrets were rising from hidden positions throughout New Haven. The aliens were forced to take cover, and in the confusion, the Chen family ran. They reached the foothills of the mountains as the battle raged behind them. Looking back, they could see the alien ships hovering over the colony, their beams of light continuing to work. By dawn, 15 children had been taken, including some of Marcus and Zara's closest friends. The Chen family spent 3 days hiding in the mountains. Moving from one emergency shelter to another, Dr. Chen had prepared well, and they had food, water, and communication equipment. But every attempt to contact Earth failed. The aliens were jamming all transmissions from the planet. On the third night, as they huddled in a cave overlooking the colony, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. "I'm going back," he announced quietly. "Absolutely not," his mother said immediately. "Mom, listen to me," Marcus said, his voice carrying a maturity beyond his 12 years. "The aliens are jamming our communications from orbit, but the old quantum relay station on the far side of the colony is hardened against interference. If I can reach it, ... I'll go with you," Zara said, her small chin set with determination. "No," both parents said at once. "Yes," Marcus said firmly. "Zara knows the service tunnels better than anyone. She's small enough to fit through spaces I can't, and if we're caught..." He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. Aliens wanted human children. If Marcus and Zara were captured, it might buy their parents time to escape. Dr. Chen looked at his children, seeing not the babies he remembered, but the young people they were becoming. "The quantum relay is 15 kilometers away. The aliens are patrolling the area. Suicide." "Not if we're careful," Marcus said. "Not if we're smart." After hours of argument, the parents finally agreed. They had no choice. Someone had to warn Earth, and the adults were too big to move unseen through the colony. The children would have to try at dawn. Marcus and Zara Chen began their journey back toward the colony. They moved carefully, using every bit of cover, staying in the shadows. They had their father's emergency beacon, a quantum transmitter that could punch through the alien jamming if they could reach the relay station. As they approached the edge of the colony, they saw the devastation the aliens had caused. Buildings were damaged, vehicles destroyed, and the streets were eerily quiet. The remaining colonists were being held in the central square, guarded by alien soldiers. "This way," Zara whispered, leading her brother toward a drainage tunnel she had discovered. Months earlier, while playing hide-and-seek with her friends, the tunnel was narrow and dark, but it led directly under the colony toward the far side where the quantum relay waited. They crawled through the tunnel for hours, their hands and knees scraped raw by the rough concrete. When they finally emerged, they were only a few hundred meters from the relay station. Between them and their goal stood 2 alien guards, their weapons ready, their attention focused on the surrounding area. Marcus and Zara crouched behind a fallen tree, studying their opponents. The aliens were tall and graceful, their silver skin gleaming in the sunlight. They moved with fluid precision, clearly skilled warriors. But they were also overconfident, secure in their technological superiority. "I have an idea," Zara whispered. She had noticed something the aliens had missed. The quantum relay station was automated, but it also had a manual backup system. If they could create a distraction, one of them might be able to reach the manual controls, while the other activated the beacon. Marcus understood immediately. "I'll draw them away. You get to the relay." "No," Zara said firmly. "They want children. If they see me, they'll try to capture me, not kill me. That gives me a better chance." Before Marcus could argue, Zara was moving. She stood up from behind the tree and walked calmly toward the alien guards, her small hands raised in surrender. The aliens immediately focused on her, their weapons lowering slightly as they recognized her as a potential prize. "Human child," one of them said through his translator. "You will come with us." "Okay," Zara said simply. "But can I ask you something first?" The alien tilted his head, curious about this strange human child who showed no fear. "Why do you want to hurt us?" Zara asked. "He never did anything to you." While the aliens were distracted by Zara's question, Marcus moved. He sprinted toward the relay station, staying low and using the natural cover of rocks and bushes. He reached the building just as the aliens realized they had been tricked. "Stop!" one of them shouted, raising his weapon toward Marcus, but it was too late. Marcus had reached the manual controls and was already inputting the activation sequence his father had taught him. The quantum relay hummed to life, its powerful transmitter cutting through the alien, jamming like a knife through paper. The beacon in Marcus's hand activated, sending a priority distress signal directly to Earth Fleet Command. The message was simple but devastating. New Haven colony under attack. Children taken. Request immediate assistance. The aliens fired their weapons, but Marcus and Zara were already moving. They ran through the forest, using every trick there. Father had taught them about survival. Behind them, the aliens gave chase, but the children knew the terrain better than their pursuers. As they ran, Marcus looked up at the sky and whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. The message was sent. Earth would know what had happened here. And when Earth learned that someone had broken the sacred rule, the galaxy would tremble. The first part of their journey was complete. But the real story was just beginning. The awakening. Storm Earth's discovery, the quantum burst transmission from New Haven, reached Earth Fleet Command at 0347 hours, Galactic Standard Time. The duty officer, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, was reviewing routine patrol reports when the priority alert blazed across his screen in angry red letters. For a moment, he stared at the message in disbelief, reading it 3 times before his training kicked in. Code Black. Code Black, he shouted across the command center. We have a Code Black situation. Within minutes, Fleet Admiral Sarah Mitchell was standing in the command center, her gray hair hastily pulled back and her uniform still being fastened. She was a veteran of 40 years of service, a woman who had seen every type of crisis the galaxy could throw at humanity. But when she read the message from New Haven, her face went pale. "Confirm the transmission," she ordered, her voice deadly calm. "Confirmed, Admiral," Rodriguez replied. "Quantum signature matches the New Haven emergency beacon. The message is authentic." Admiral Mitchell closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of history settling on her shoulders. She had hoped this day would never come. For 3 centuries, the galaxy had respected the sacred rule. No one had been foolish enough to test humanity's resolve when it came to their children. "Activate Protocol 7, she said quietly. The command center fell silent. Protocol 7 was a theoretical response plan that had been prepared but never implemented. It was humanity's nuclear option, the plan that would be activated only if someone broke the most sacred law in the galaxy. Admiral Rodriguez said hesitantly, "Are you sure?" "Protocol 7 authorizes." "I know what it authorizes," Admiral Mitchell cut him off. "Send the activation codes to all Ghost Fleet commanders. Full mobilization in 36 hours. Cross human space, on hidden bases and secret installations." The Ghost Fleet began to wake up. These were ships that officially didn't exist. Vessels built for one purpose: to respond to threats against human children. The technology aboard these ships was decades ahead of anything the galactic community had seen from humanity. For 3 centuries, humans had been preparing for this day while hoping it would never come. The hidden arsenal on Titan Station. Orbiting Saturn, Admiral Marcus Hawk received the activation codes with a mixture of dread and grim satisfaction. He was the commander of Ghost Fleet Alpha, 13 ships that had been hidden in the asteroid belt for 20 years. His flagship, the Retribution, was a kilometer-long dreadnought that could level entire star systems. "All ships, this is Admiral Hawk," he broadcast on the encrypted channel. "Ghost Protocol is now active. Repeat, Ghost Protocol is active. All vessels report readiness status." The responses came quickly. The Vengeance, the Wrath, the Fury. 12 more ships with names that promised exactly what they were built to deliver. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had sworn an oath to protect human children at any cost. "Fleet status?" Hawk asked his operations officer. "All ships report ready for immediate deployment, sir." "Estimated time to New Haven's system, 72 hours at maximum burn." Admiral Hawk nodded grimly. "Set course for the Kepler system. Maximum burn authorized." How similar scenes were playing out across human space. Ghost Fleet Beta was launching. From hidden bases beyond Pluto, Ghost Fleet Gamma was emerging from concealed shipyards in the Proxima Centauri system. In total, 47 ships that the galaxy had never seen were converging on one target: the forces that had dared to take human children. The prison moon 3,000 light-years away, on the dark side of Titan 7, a moon orbiting the Zephyrian homeworld. 15 human children sat in a sterile white chamber. The room was large enough for them to move around, with soft beds and adequate food, but the walls were made of some transparent material that hummed with energy. They were prisoners, and they knew it. Tommy Morrison, a red-haired boy of 11, paced back and forth near the energy barrier. He had been trying to find a weakness in their prison for 2 days, testing every surface, every corner. Behind him, his classmates huddled together for comfort. The youngest was 6-year-old Emma Walsh, who cried quietly for her mother. "There has to be a way out," Tommy muttered, running his hands along the smooth walls. "Everything has a weakness." Lisa Park, a 12-year-old girl with keen intelligence, looked up from where she was comforting Emma. "Tommy, we've been over every inch of this place. The walls are some kind of force field. The door is the same material. Even if we could break through, where would we go?"
Away from here.
Tommy said stubbornly. "My dad always said that humans never give up. Never." Through the transparent walls, they could see alien scientists moving around in the outer chamber. The Zephyrians were tall and graceful, their silver skin shifting colors as they worked. The children had learned that blue meant concentration, red meant excitement, and deep purple meant anger or frustration. Dr. Nex Vorthok, lead researcher and cousin to General Nex Vorthok, approached their prison with a device in his hands. His skin was cycling through different shades of blue. As he studied the readings on his screen, "Fascinating," he said in his musical voice, though the translation device made his words sound mechanical. "The neural activity in these specimens is unlike anything we've recorded." Tommy stepped forward, his young face set with determination. "We're not specimens. We're people. And our families are going to come for us." Dr. Vorthek's skin shifted to an amused green. "Child, your families are 3,000 light-years away. Even if they knew where you were, which they don't, it would take them months to reach this system." "You don't know humans very well," Lisa said quietly. "When someone hurts our children, distance doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter. Nothing matters except getting them back." The Zephyrian scientist made notes on his device. "Such loyalty is ... inefficient. But perhaps it explains the anomalous readings we're detecting." What Dr. Vorthok didn't understand was that the children weren't just angry or scared. Something was happening to them, something that the scientists' instruments could detect but not interpret. The strange minerals from New Haven had left traces in their bloodstream, and those traces were reacting to their emotional state. Emma Walsh, the youngest prisoner, suddenly looked up with eyes that seemed to glow slightly in the artificial light. "They're coming," she said in a voice that was far too calm for a 6-year-old. "The angry ships are coming. The wilderness survivors back on Kepler-4 for to be." Marcus and Zara Chen had been hiding in the mountains for 5 days since sending their message to Earth. They had managed to avoid the Zephyrian patrols, but their supplies were running low. Their parents had been captured 3 days earlier while trying to create a distraction, and now the children were completely on their own. "I'm hungry," Zara complained, as they crouched behind a fallen log, watching an alien patrol pass below. "Them, I know," Marcus whispered back. "But we can't risk going back to the colony. Dad's emergency caches are our only option." They had been moving from one hidden supply depot to another, following the map their father had made them memorize. Dr. Chen had been thorough in his preparations, hiding food, water, and equipment throughout the mountain range. But the caches were spread far apart. The children were exhausted, as the alien patrol moved away. Marcus led his sister down a narrow ravine toward the next cache location. They had gone about a kilometer when Zara suddenly stopped, her head tilted as if listening to something. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Marcus paused, straining his ears. At first he heard nothing but the wind through the alien trees. Then, faintly, he caught it, a low humming sound that seemed to come from the rocks themselves. "It's the crystals," Zara said with certainty. "They're singing." Marcus looked at his sister with concern. She had been saying strange things since the attack, claiming she could hear the mysterious minerals their father had been studying. He had assumed it was stress, but now he wasn't so sure. Following the humming sound, they discovered something their father had never found, a natural cave filled with the glowing crystals. The minerals pulsed with soft light, and as the children approached, The humming grew stronger. "They're trying to tell us something," Zara said, reaching toward one of the larger crystals. "Don't touch it," Marcus said quickly, remembering his father's warnings about the unknown minerals. But Zara's hand was already on the crystal's surface. The moment she made contact, the cave filled with brilliant light, and both children were thrown backward by a wave of energy. When their vision cleared, they found themselves looking at something impossible. The crystals were projecting images in the air, holographic displays showing star maps, ship designs, and what looked like historical records. But these weren't human or Zephyrian images. They were something else, something older. "The Keepers," Zara whispered, though she had no idea where the name came from. "They left these here, a long time ago." Marcus stared at the floating images, his young mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The star maps showed the galaxy as it had been thousands of years ago, with different borders and different names. The ship designs were unlike anything he had ever seen, elegant and organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. "Zara, how do you know this?" he asked. His sister's eyes were reflecting the crystal light as she studied the images. "They're teaching me. The crystals remember everything. They remember the Keepers and they remember the promise." "What promise?" "Do. Protect the children," Zara said simply. "All children, everywhere. That's why the crystals only respond to young minds. The Keepers made them that way." As if responding to her words, new images appeared in the holographic display. These showed the Zephyrian ships in orbit, the prison facility on Titan VII, and most importantly, the approaching human fleet. The crystals had somehow tapped into the galactic communication networks, showing the children everything that was happening across the star system. Marcus felt hope surge in his chest as he saw the human warships racing toward them. But Zara was frowning at the images, her expression troubled. "They're not fast enough," she said. "The bad aliens are going to hurt our friends before the ships get here." "Then we have to help them," Marcus said, though he had no idea how to. Children stranded on an alien world could help their captured friends. Zara smiled, and for a moment she looked far older than her 8 years. "The crystals can help, but they need someone to ask them properly, someone young enough to hear their song." She placed both hands on the largest crystal in the cave, and the entire chamber erupted with light. Energy coursed through the crystal, network beneath the planet's surface, activating systems that had been dormant for millennia. Deep beneath New Haven Colony, ancient machinery began to hum to life. The emergency session in the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council. Emergency session had been called for the first time in 50 years. Representatives from hundreds of species had gathered to address the crisis that was spreading across the galaxy. The news of the human children's abduction had reached every civilized world, and panic was beginning to set in. Chancellor Vex of the Alterian Republic stood at the central podium, his multiple eyes scanning the assembled delegates. His species was one of the oldest in the galaxy, and he had lived through the aftermath of the Drachneri incident. He remembered the fear that had gripped every world when the humans unleashed their fury. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "We are gathered here to address the most serious crisis our galaxy has faced. In 3 centuries, reports confirm that 15 human children have been abducted from the New Haven colony by forces believed to be under Zephyrian command." A murmur of fear and anger rippled through the assembly. The Zephyrian delegation sat in stony silence, their skin colors shifting through deep purples and blacks, colors that indicated shame and terror. Ambassador Crix Vorthok, the Supreme Chancellor of the Zephyrian Empire, rose slowly from his seat. His silver skin had turned almost black with emotional turmoil. "Honored Chancellor, the Zephyrian Empire categorically denies any official involvement in this alleged incident." "Alleged?" The voice that cut through the hall was cold and sharp. Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the human representative, stood at her delegation's platform, her dark eyes blazing with controlled fury. "Ambassador Vorthok, we have quantum transmission records, visual evidence, and confirmed ship signatures. This is not an allegation. This is a fact." The hall fell silent as Ambassador Vasquez activated a holographic display showing the attack on New Haven. The images were clear and damning. Zephyrian vessels, Zephyrian soldiers, and Zephyrian technology used in the abduction of human children. Furthermore, Ambassador Vasquez continued, "We have evidence that this operation was personally authorized by General Vex Vorthok, brother to Supreme Chancellor Crix Vorthok." The Zephyrian delegation erupted in shocked whispers. Chancellor Crix's skin turned bone white, a color that indicated complete emotional shutdown. "This is ... This cannot be true." "Ask your brother," Ambassador Vasquez said coldly. "But do it quickly. Yuma fleet elements are already en route to your territory. You have 72 hours to return our children unharmed, or face the consequences." An elderly delegate from the Crystalline Confederation stood up, his voice wavering. "With age and fear? Ambassador Vasquez, surely the human government can be reasonable about this. The Zephyrians are a dying people, desperate for resources. Perhaps some accommodation can be reached." Ambassador Vasquez turned her gaze on the elderly alien, and her expression was so cold that several delegates actually stepped back. "Delegate Shard, let me make something absolutely clear to this assembly. There is no negotiation when it comes to human children. There's no accommodation. There is no compromise. There is only the return of our children, or there is war." "But the economic implications," another delegate began. "Will be your problem to solve," Ambassador Vasquez cut him off. 3 centuries ago, this council established the rule protecting human children because you witnessed what happens when that rule is broken. Are young for their twisted experiments. Where are the Drachnari now? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Everyone in the hall knew the answer. The Drachnares were gone, erased from existence so thoroughly that only their name remained. "As a warning to others, the choice is simple," Ambassador Vasquez continued. "Return our children within 72 hours, or watch as the Zephyrian Empire joins the Drachnari in the history books." As the session dissolved into chaos, emergency communications were being sent to every corner of Zephyrian space. The message was urgent and desperate. Find the children and return them immediately, before humanity's vengeance arrived to claim them all. But on Titan 7, General Vex Vorthok was not planning to surrender. He was planning to use the children as leverage, believing that humans would not risk harming their young by attacking the prison facility. It was a miscalculation that would cost him everything. The storm was gathering, and nothing in the galaxy would be the same once it broke. The price of breaking. Sacred laws, the Ghost Fleet arrives. The Zephyrian home system had been peaceful for over 1,000 years. The twin stars cast their golden light over 7 inhabited worlds, each one a testament to Zephyrian artistry and civilization. Trade ships moved in lazy orbits between the planets, and the system's defense fleet conducted routine patrols with the casual efficiency of forces that had never faced a real threat. All of that changed when space itself seemed to tear open. First Ghost Fleet ship to emerge from hyperspace was the Retribution Admiral Hawk's flagship. It materialized from the void like a nightmare-given form, a kilometer of black metal and terrible purpose. The ship's hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, making it appear as a dark wound against the stars. Within seconds, 12 more ships had emerged, each one a masterpiece of human military engineering. They moved with predatory grace, their sensor arrays sweeping the system while their weapons charged with ominous purpose. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Hawk studied the tactical display showing the Zephyrian fleet positions. It's 47 ships, mostly older designs, built for peacekeeping rather than warfare. They were already moving to intercept, but their formation was hesitant, uncertain. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian fleet commander." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Nex Tholon, commander of the Zephyrian home fleet. His silver skin was cycling rapidly between deep blue and purple, colors that indicated extreme stress. "Human vessels, this is Admiral Tholon of the Zephyrian Defense Force. You are in violation of our territorial sovereignty. State your intentions.
Dad.
Admiral Hawke's expression was carved from stone. Admiral Tholen, I am Admiral Marcus Hawke of the Earth Defense Force. We are here for our children. Turn them immediately, and we will withdraw. I don't understand, Admiral Tholen replied, though his color shifts suggested he understood. Perfectly. There has been some mistake. The Zephyrian Empire has no human children in custody. Admiral Hawke said quietly, I'm going to explain this once, clearly, so there can be no misunderstanding. 15 human children were abducted from New Haven Colony by forces under Zephyrian command. We have proof. We have evidence. We have their location. You have 1 hour to return them, or we will take them back ourselves. The transmission cut off, leaving Admiral Tholen staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to contact their government too. Find someone who could explain what was happening. But in the deep bunkers of the Zephyrian capital, Supreme Chancellor Crix Vorthok was already trying to reach his brother. While General Vex Vorthok was refusing all communications from the home world, the prison break on Titan 7, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The arrival of the human fleet had thrown the research facility into chaos. Dr. Nex Vorthok was frantically trying to complete his experiments before the inevitable attack. While his security forces prepared for a siege they knew they couldn't. When, in their prison cell, the 15 human children could feel the change in the air. The Zephyrian guards were nervous, their skin colors shifting rapidly as they received increasingly urgent orders from their commanders. Tommy Morrison pressed his face against the energy barrier, trying to see what was happening in the outer laboratory. They're scared, he observed with satisfaction. Really scared. Lisa Park nodded, her keen mind analyzing everything she could. Observe, the adults are coming for us. That's what has them panicked. 6-year-old Emma Walsh stood in the center of their cell, her eyes closed and her head tilted as if listening to something only she could hear. Since the morning, she'd been acting strangely, claiming she could feel something calling to her from far away. The crystals are singing, she said suddenly, her young voice carrying an odd certainty. They're angry about what the bad people did. The other children exchanged worried glances. Emma had been talking about crystals for days, ever since they had been captured. They had assumed it was her way of dealing with the trauma, but now her words seemed almost prophetic. Emma, Lisa said gently, what crystals are you talking about? The ones in the ground? Emma replied, her eyes still closed. The ones that remember everything. They don't like it when children are hurt. As if responding to her words, a low vibration began to run through the floor of their cell. At first, it was barely noticeable, but it quickly grew stronger. The energy barrier that held them flickered, and somewhere in the distance, alarms began to sound. Dr. Nex Vorthok burst into the outer laboratory, his skin cycling through rapid color changes that indicated extreme agitation. What is happening to the power grid? He demanded of his assistants. Unknown, sir, one of them replied, his voice tight with fear. The energy fluctuations are coming from the planet's core. It's as if the mineral deposits are somehow becoming active. Through the transparent walls of their cell, the children could see the Zephyrian scientists working frantically at their controls. But their equipment was failing, systems shutting down one by one as the strange vibrations from below grew stronger. It's starting, Emma said with a smile that was far too knowing for a 6-year-old child. The ancient awakening 3,000 light-years away. On Kepler 4-4b, Zara Chen stood in the crystal cave with her hands pressed against the largest formation. Energy was flowing through her small body, connecting her to a network of mineral deposits that spanned the entire planet. Around her, the crystals pulsed with increasing intensity. Their ancient programming finally activated after millennia of dormancy. Marcus watched his sister with growing concern. She had been in contact with the crystals for hours, and strange things were happening around them. The cave walls were covered with moving images, star maps, technical diagrams, and scenes from across the galaxy. He could see their friends in their prison cell, the human fleet approaching the Zephyrian system, and something else that made his blood run cold. Zara, he said urgently, you need to stop. This is too much for you. His sister turned to look at him, and her eyes were glowing with the same light as the crystals. When she spoke, Her voice carried harmonics that seemed to come from the stones themselves. "The Keepers made a promise," she said, "to protect all children, everywhere. The crystals are the guardians they left behind on the holographic displays." Marcus could see energy building and crystal networks across dozens of worlds. The Keepers, whoever they had been, had seeded the galaxy with their technology. And now, in response to the violation of their most sacred law, that technology was awakening. "What's happening?" Marcus asked. "Just as Zara replied simply. The fleet engagement Admiral Hawk checked his chronometer. The hour he had given the Zephyrians was almost up, and there had been no response from the prison facility on Titan 7. Around him, his bridge crew prepared for what everyone knew was inevitable. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the Zephyrian fleet is moving to intercept. 47 ships, closing on our position." Hawk nodded grimly. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but he had been prepared for it. "Signal all ships. Execute Protocol 7 Alpha." The Ghost Fleet moved like a pack of predators, their formations designed for maximum lethality. The Zephyrians had numbers, but the humans had technology that was decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. The first exchange of fire lasted less than 30 seconds and ended with 12 Zephyrian ships destroyed or disabled. Admiral Tholon, watching his fleet being systematically dismantled, made a desperate decision. All ships fall back to defensive. Positions around the inner planets. Do not engage unless directly threatened. It was a wise choice, but it came too late. The Ghost Fleet swept past the retreating Zephyrians like they weren't even there, their course set for Titan 7 and the children imprisoned on its surface. The rescue. The assault on Titan 7 was swift and merciless. Ghost Fleet Marines, equipped with the finest armor and weapons humanity could produce, cut through the moon's defenses like a hot knife through butter. The Zephyrian guards, trained for peacekeeping, rather than warfare, stood no chance against soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this one mission. "Captain." Sarah Connor led the assault team through the research facility's corridors, her weapon scanning for threats while her armor's sensors mapped the building's layout. Behind her, 20 more Marines advanced with disciplined precision. "Target located," her point man reported. 15 human life signs, concentrated in Section C7. "Move," Connor ordered. They found the children's cell just as the power grid finally collapsed completely. The energy barriers flickered and died, and the children stumbled out into the laboratory. Blinking in the sudden darkness of emergency lighting. "Are you the rescue team?" Tommy Morrison asked, though his voice carried more defiance than relief. Captain Connor removed her helmet, revealing a stern but kind face. "That's right, son. We're here to take you home." As the Marines secured the children and prepared them for evacuation, they encountered Dr. Nex Vorthok in the main laboratory. The Zephyrian scientist was hunched over his instruments, still trying to complete his research even as his world collapsed around him. "The readings," he muttered to himself, his skin cycling through colors of desperation. "The neural patterns are unlike anything we've recorded. If I could just... ... "Step away from the equipment," Captain Connor ordered. Her weapon trained on the scientist, Dr. Vorthok looked up at her with eyes that were wide with scientific fervor rather than fear. "You don't understand? These children are extraordinary. Their brain patterns show connections to quantum fields that shouldn't be possible if we could study them further... ... "Step away," Connor repeated, her voice carrying a deadly finality. The scientist's skin shifted to deep red, the color of anger and frustration. "This is for the good of science, for the advancement of all species. Surely you can see." Captain Connor's weapon fired once, and Dr. Nex Vorthok crumpled to the floor. She had no patience for anyone who would experiment on children, regardless of their stated motivations. "Evacuation complete," she reported over her comm. "Children recovered, all in good health. Beginning extraction now." The reckoning as the rescue ships lifted off from Titan 7. Carrying the children to safety, the consequences of the Zephyrian Empire's actions were beginning to unfold across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds where Keeper crystals lay dormant, ancient systems were coming online. Energy grids failed, communication networks collapsed, and the very infrastructure of galactic civilization began to buckle under the assault of technology that was older than recorded history, but the worst was yet to come. In the Zephyrian home, System Admiral Hawk received a priority transmission from Earth Fleet Command. Admiral Mitchell's face appeared on his screen, her expression grim with the weight of terrible decisions. Admiral Hawk, this is Admiral Mitchell. The children are secure? Confirmed, Admiral? All 15 recovered in good health. Good. Now comes the hard part. Mitchell paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the authority of humanity's collective fury. Admiral, you are authorized to proceed with Draconary Protocol. Felt a chill run down his spine. The Draconary Protocol was humanity's ultimate response, the complete and total destruction of any civilization that harmed human children. It had been used only once before, 3 centuries ago, and the galaxy still remembered the results. Admiral Hawk said carefully, "Are you certain? The Zephyrian Empire spans 50 systems, billions of lives. They made their choice when they took our children," Mitchell replied coldly. "Execute the protocol, Admiral. Make sure the galaxy remembers why the rule exists." On Kepler 44 to B, Zara Chen screamed as the full power of the Keeper network flowed. Through her small body, the crystals on dozens of worlds were resonating in harmony, their combined energy building toward something that hadn't been seen since the fall of the Keeper civilization itself. "Zara," Marcus shouted, reaching for his sister. "Don't touch her." A new voice called out. Marcus spun around to see their parents stumbling into the crystal cave, supported by 2 human Marines who had found them during the liberation of New Haven Colony. Dr. James Chen stared at his daughter in amazement and terror. "The crystals... they're using her as a focal point. The entire galactic network is channeling through her." "We have to stop this," Sarah Chen cried, reaching toward her daughter. "No," Dr. Chen said quietly, his scientific mind finally understanding. "What he was witnessing, we can't stop it. This is what the Keepers built their network for. To protect children, all children, everywhere." Across the galaxy, the Keeper crystals reached critical resonance. On every world where Zephyrian forces were stationed, where Zephyrian colonies existed, where Zephyrian influence held sway, the ancient technology activated its final protocol. It was not an attack in any conventional sense. There were no explosions, no weapons fire, no violence of any kind. Instead, every piece of Zephyrian technology simply ... stopped. Their ships fell out of hyperspace. Their cities went dark. Their life support systems failed. In less than 6 hours, the Zephyrian Empire, a civilization that had endured for over 5,000 years, ceased to exist. The New Order 1 month later, in the rebuilt chambers of the Galactic Council, a new treaty was being signed. The survivors of the Zephyrian Empire, less than 1 million individuals scattered across refugee camps, had been granted asylum by various worlds. But their civilization, their culture, their empire, all of it was gone, erased as completely. As the Draconary before them, Ambassador Alina Vasquez stood before the assembled delegates, her expression showing no satisfaction in the victory, only grim determination. The new treaty in her hands would reshape galactic civilization for centuries to come. "The document before you," she announced, "establishes the Children's Protection Alliance. Every species that signs this treaty agrees to several fundamental principles. First, that the children of all species are to be considered sacred and inviolate. Second, that any action taken against the young of any species will be considered an act of war against all member species. Third, that humanity will serve as the enforcement arm of this alliance, with full authority to respond to violations as we see fit." An elderly delegate from the Alterian Republic raised one of his many hands. "Ambassador Vasquez," the terms seemed harsh. "Surely there should be room for negotiation, for diplomatic solutions." Ambassador Vasquez's expression didn't change. "Delegate Vex, the Zephyrians believe there was room for negotiation too. I'm sure you can ask them how that worked out if you can find any of them still alive." The threat was clear, and the vote was unanimous. Within weeks, every major civilization in the galaxy had signed the Children's Protection Alliance Treaty. They had seen what happened to those who harmed human children. They had no desire to learn what humanity would do to those who harmed the children of other species. Epilogue. The legend spreads on New Haven Colony. Now rebuilt and stronger than ever, 12-year-old Marcus Chen sat with his sister in their family's garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant purples and golds. Zara seemed normal again, though she still occasionally claimed she could hear the crystals singing in the distance. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Marcus asked, thinking about the billions of Zephyrians who had died. Zara considered the question with the seriousness that only children could bring to matters of cosmic importance. "The crystals remember everything," she said finally.
How?
"They remember other times when bad people hurt children. They remember what happened when no one stopped them." She pointed to the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. "Now, every parent on every world knows their children are safe. It's worth something, isn't it?" Marcus nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure he understood the full implications of what had happened. But what he did know was that the galaxy had changed. The ancient rule that protected human children had been expanded to protect all children. Everywhere, and in the deep places of dozens of worlds, the Keeper crystals continued their eternal vigil, waiting patiently for the next time someone might forget that there are some lines that should never be crossed. The story spread from world to world, told in 1,000 different languages by 1,000 different species. It became legend, then myth, then fundamental truth. Children across the galaxy grew up knowing that they were protected not just by their own people, but by an ancient network of guardians and by humans who would cross any distance, pay any price to keep them safe. And in the darkness between the stars, where new threats to galactic peace might one day emerge, the Ghost Fleet maintained its eternal patrol, ready to remind the universe that some rules exist for very good reasons. The first rule of the galaxy had been tested and proven. Once again, the price of breaking it was extinction. The reward for following it was peace, and in a garden on a distant world. Two children who had helped reshape the galaxy went inside for dinner, their parents' voices calling them home as the stars came, out to sing their ancient songs of protection and peace. The end.